It's Eddie Trunk. This is Trunk Nation, talking rock with you every day here on Volume. And now we do have a guy that's been far too long that I've spoken to, an old friend joining us, the original lead singer of Queensrÿche, Geoff Tate, right now. Geoff, how are you, man?
Hey, I'm good, Eddie. How are you?
Good. It's been too long. You know, I got to tell you a funny story. When you were out on tour recently, I texted you a couple times because I wanted to say hello, and I said, you know, I haven't talked to Geoff in a while. Maybe he wants to come on and promote the tour dates. And after a couple texts, I didn't get a response. And then the response comes back and goes, I don't know who this Geoff guy is, but I've been getting a lot of texts from him, and this is not his number anymore. So clearly I apologize to whoever I made a mistake and was texting, but I guess you changed your number, Geoff.
Yeah, I changed it a couple of years ago, and yeah, I've heard that from a number of people that have told me that story. I thought they would have scrambled the numbers or something, you know, before they give it out again. But I guess
no, and I guess, yeah, I was thinking that too, because I was like, well, it wasn't that long since I talked to Geoff. It's like, don't they retire numbers for at least a little longer before they reassign them? But somebody stuck with your number and probably getting a lot of calls and people trying to hit them up to hear certain songs or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, it's funny, huh?
Are you on the road now, Geoff, or are you home?
I am. I'm actually in New York for the show tomorrow night.
Okay, where are you guys at tomorrow?
I don't know, actually, the name of the place. Some place close to Broadway, I think. I'm not sure what the name of it is.
All right, well, we'll get the info.
I haven't looked that far ahead.
It's Sony Hall.
Oh, yeah, we got you here. Sony Hall. Yeah, you're in. That's a cool little room. It's downstairs there. I've been there. Sony Hall in New York. I didn't realize you were in New York City. So you've been out for a while now, and you've been playing. Tell everybody what you're doing, because you're doing. You're celebrating the anniversary of 2 classic Queensrÿche records, correct?
Yeah. Well, I started last year in 2020, with the celebration of the 30-year anniversary of the Empire album, playing that in its entirety. And that was just a few months going. And in fact, we played most of Europe, and then we came to the United States and started. I think we were like 3 or 4 weeks in, and that's when COVID hit and started shutting everything down, you know. So we had to go on hiatus for a while. And then, we started up again now that the coasts are clear, basically, and we're out playing the show, and it's going great. We're playing Empire in its entirety, and also Rage for Order, which is kind of a treat personally, because it's one of my favorite Queensrÿche albums, and I really enjoyed singing that album.
So Rage for Order is what, 35 years?
Oh, gosh, I guess so. It's 1986, I think it came out.
So coming up on 37.
Yeah.
Did you decide to do Rage because of that anniversary as well, or just because it's one of your favorite records?
No, it's just one of my favorites. Yeah, I never got a chance to play a lot of the songs off that record in my time with Queensrÿche, and I thought, well, you know, life's getting pretty short. It's on my bucket list of things to do. Why not? And so, yeah, we've been doing it, and it's really fun to play, because both albums are very, very different, you know. And so we start with Rage, and then we play that, and it's really a kind of a dark, kind of futuristic kind of mood for that album, you know. And then we take a short break, and we come back out, and the whole thing is different with Empire, because it's very up, and everybody knows the album, you know. So it's a good time. People singing along.
You had mentioned that Rage for Order was one of your favorite Queensrÿche records to sing, and that you're fond of that record. Beyond what you just mentioned about it being a little darker, what is it about that time in your history, that time in the band's history, or that material on that record that makes it one of your favorites?
You know, I don't really know for certain. I think it was just a very eclectic approach to making a record. We didn't have, you know, a lot of success previous to that, so we kind of didn't have, you know, the imposed borders that come with success. We could kind of do anything we wanted to do, and therefore, you know, we really did. We really pushed our own, boundaries of writing and composition and instrumentation as well on that record. And I think that's probably what I enjoy about it. It has a freedom about it that's quite attractive.
Do you remember talk about that prior to making it, or did it just happen organically when you started writing and recording?
Yeah, it just all started happening. You write about what you're interested in, and then it comes out. And what happens next is people start asking you to explain what it is you did. And that's where it gets complicated, is because you have to sort of put it into words what you're trying to do, and really it should really be taken at face value. That's what it is. You don't really need to explain it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously the opening track on that record, "Walk in the Shadows," is a classic. But there's a song on that record, and I remember you guys did a video for it as well. The song "Gonna Get Close to You," and that a lot of people might not know is a cover, and it was done by a Canadian woman a couple years prior to you guys recording it, by the name of Lisa Dalbello. How did that get on your radar? How did it come that you guys ended up doing that song? Because a lot of people think it's just your song. They don't actually know that the woman who actually recorded it and wrote it actually had a fair amount of success with it in Canada. How did it get on Queensrÿche's radar to do for Rage for Order?
We were friends, and it's a really cool song. And we were one short song for the record, and our management actually suggested, hey, why don't you do one of Lisa's songs? And so we started messing around with the song a little bit in the studio, and actually we recorded it in like a day. It was kind of like, here's the idea, let's see what it's all about. Boom, recording it, and then done. It was very spur of the moment, and turned out really nicely. I love that song. We kind of gave it a different feel than her original version. We gave it kind of our own spin.
Yeah, there's a darkness and almost like an eeriness about it, actually. Even the video, and that's the other thing, Geoff, about that period of time for Rage for Order. People who have the record and know visually, you guys had an interesting look going on at that time, didn't you?
Yeah, we pretty much copied Ozzy Osbourne's look. Where
did the idea come from for that?
Well, he looked really cool. His whole band looked great. We were touring with him, and it just kind of happened.
Yeah, I forgot that you guys were out. So what was that for Ozzy? That was Ultimate Sin?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, Ultimate Sin. Every
band that tours with Ozzy has crazy Ozzy stories. Do you have any you could share?
Most of all the stories with Ozzy were drinking stories, drinking in the bar, actually. He, at that time, apparently he was quite a notorious drinker, and liked to be in the bar, and he was comfortable there, and that's where you could find him and have a conversation with him if you desired. He was pretty open about everything at that time, and easy to hang out with. I don't really have tales of debauchery other than, drinking too much and falling down, and waking up the next day and having to do the show. But when you're in your 20s, you can do that. It's easy.
Yeah, no doubt. And then you mentioned the other album that you're doing on this tour is Empire, and of course the table was set nicely for the success of Empire because Operation Mindcrime was a big breakthrough record for you previous to that. When you guys started working on Empire and that album coming together, did you feel a pressure? Was there a pressure within yourself and the band at that time to build, which you certainly did, build on the success of Mindcrime?
Not really. No, I didn't, at least. It was just kind of another record, It was an idea, and I struck out on the idea to make it happen, and it always sort of the way I work, at least, is you start running with your ideas, and before you know it, you got a record, and then it's up to who you've got working for you, how they promote it, and how they sell it, and we were very fortunate at that time to have EMI Records, which was a big powerhouse, record company at the time, and they really sunk a lot of money into the promotion of it, which, really, really made a huge difference comparatively to previous records that we'd done where there wasn't as much money spent on the promotion.
Yeah, and of course, when you talk about Empire, I mean, by far the biggest song Queensrÿche has in the catalog in terms of just mass awareness is on that record in Silent Lucidity. And I always wondered when that song came in, Queensrÿche was always, there's a lot of diversity within the music, but when you heard and put that song together, and I believe Chris DeGarmo wrote it, was that something where was there any hesitation in doing something that was that structured like that much of a ballad, that tone, that sort of approach to doing a song? Was there any reservation?
No, not reservation. It was a song that was quite beautiful on its own, and you have to remember when we chose to put it on the record, it was just acoustic guitar and vocal at the time. It didn't have anything else. But I really liked the melody quite a bit that Chris came up with, and the words he wrote were quite beautiful. And we had a good place to start from, building on the song. And that's what we did. We invited Michael Kamen, who had worked with us on the Warning album and on Operation Mindcrime, to write and compose some orchestra parts, for Lucidity, and which he did. And we got those parts from him just in the last couple days of mixing the record. So the song was really on its own. By that time, it had bass and drums to it and all the vocals completed, but we didn't have all that beautiful orchestration yet. And so we were just envisioning that Michael was going to come up with something, amazing, which he did. But I always remember when the FedEx came to the studio with the tapes in it from London, we anxiously put them on the machine and lined them up to our machine and played it all down. And we were crying. It was so beautiful. It was just, it was better than what Chris or I had imagined. And Peter Collins, our producer at the time, was jumping up and down because he wasn't a believer in the song the way it was, but with the orchestration, it really pushed the song over the top and became something quite a bit different. And it really, like you said, it really resonated with a lot of people and still does. When I play it live, it's a song that, really, really affects people. And I've heard thousands and thousands of stories, personal stories from people who have been affected by the song and have had that song in their lives and have passed that song on to their children. And it's a wonderful situation, and I'm very fortunate, and I feel grateful to be part of that.
It's interesting because I'll talk to artists who have these songs that are the signature iconic songs in their catalog, and many of them will tell me that when they were writing it or recording it, to them it was just another song on the record. They didn't think that it was anything different or that was going to become that song for them in their life. It sounds like, from what you're telling me, when that song, you guys started working on that song, that from the get-go, even when it was just acoustic with your voice on it, that you felt like it was something special. That it felt. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like that's what you're saying.
No, I don't think it was that. It's just that it wasn't complete, Right. And the way I work and the way Chris worked was that we would always take a song to its ending. We would finish the song out, and that's one that we were just waiting to finish, and it just took longer than we had anticipated. We thought we'd have it finished by the time we went in, to mix, but we had to wait till the last couple of days before we were done. I think it was actually the last song mixed for the record.
Geoff, I'm curious, when I talk about this stuff, and I go back with you guys pretty much since the beginning, and a huge long history here, and the band's got a huge long history. And when we talk about these records 30, 35 years on, and now you're out there playing two of them in their entirety, does it make you nostalgic at all? Does it make you kind of, nostalgic for the old days?
In the old days?
Yeah, I mean,
Never.
when you created it, does it make you miss?
I love being in the now. Yeah, I was actually walking around New York today, gathering up some supplies and walking down some of the streets and getting a little nostalgic about some of the restaurants I used to love to go to, and the taverns and the cocktail lounges, and a lot of places that aren't there anymore. Because the city keeps growing, and every place is like that. If you're around long enough, whole city blocks get taken out and rebuilt, and all your memories that were attached to that location are now, altered. They're only in your head now. So it's crazy. Like, I was up in Montreal a couple of years ago and went to the bar that I used to frequent on Saint Denis Street, place called the Saint-Sulpice. It's where I wrote the Mindcrime story, and now it's a sports bar. It's a whole different vibe, right? It's not even called the Saint-Sulpice anymore. It's a whole different thing. I mean, the building is still there, at least, so I have a little bit of attachment to it, but I like living in the now and being in this time period,
Yeah, I guess where I'm going is, I thought about this a lot lately, because I know that Chris DeGarmo's popped up on doing some stuff here and there whenever Jerry Cantrell or the Alice in Chains guys do some stuff. And I know he's not really active in music anymore, but I know it seems like he'll do things here and there with Jerry. I know the Mopop thing that Chris performed at. And then, I just think back at the place Queensrÿche holds is such a special place in so many rock fans' hearts. And where you come, the original band and where you come from, I often wonder, my mind wanders, if it could have been held together. Because if you think about it, things are so fragmented now. You're out there doing this. Queensrÿche, as we know them, is two guys left. We don't know what's going on with Scott Rockenfield. Nobody seems to know. We know Chris is kind of on the fringes and not really in music. So as fans, I think our mind wanders and we say, man, what could have been if they could have held it together? Do you ever think like that, or is that just us as fans?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much a fan thought. We did hold it together for years and years and years. And it was a really, really tightly run ship, and it was very lucrative, and we had a lot of great records and did a lot of world touring, made a lot of friends, and played a lot of music together, and we had our time. And I'll always be grateful for that time that we had. It's like walking around New York, that was a time. And it doesn't mean that time has to go on forever. There's new times to be had, and there's more music to be made. There's more songs to be sung, and more audiences to play music for.
But you and I both know, as long as the original five of you, thankfully, are still alive, there's always that interest level. Is there any interest level from you, and do you see any scenario where the five of you could ever come together, even for a benefit of any sort? Is there any side of you that would welcome that or is hopeful for that?
Honestly, not really expecting that to happen, basically because we've been offered just obscene amounts of money to get back together and do one tour, and we'd never have to tour again. And, a couple people in the band turned it down. They're not interested in doing it. And so that would really be, I think, the only motivation that would get everybody together was an obscene amount of money. But that didn't work. So, there's really no hope for it after that, I think.
Well, you're being incredibly honest there, because, I mean, so many times when people talk about reunions, it's always like, well, if the wind blew the right way, and we all know at the end of the day, if the number came in and it made sense, that some people would jump at that. It's sounding like you were open to it then, but others were not, and kind of squashed it at that number.
Yeah, and I'd say that. And that, and there you go. It's money is not the motivator, and getting together for an artistic dream isn't a motivator either. So what do you have? You have nothing. So, it's obviously both camps are happy in the position they're at. And I know for myself, I love my life. I love what I'm doing, and I love traveling and playing music for people. And so far, I'm still kicking it at 63, still happy and healthy, you know.
Speaking of that, vocally, how is it for you to tackle this stuff now? Is it more difficult? Is it more challenging than I imagine when you were younger? I hear that from most singers. It gets a little harder. Everybody I talk to, Geoff, and I'm not just saying this because you're on the air with me, but everybody who called in that saw these shows raved about the shows and your vocal performance. So obviously you're still nailing it, but how do you feel at 63 singing stuff that you originally recorded in your 30s?
And 20s.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. Definitely a challenge. I think a lot of singers, if we would have thought about it a little more when we were in our 20s, there's probably some things we wouldn't have done, you know.
Paint yourself into a corner.
Yeah. And not just, you know, talking about making the music and choices you make musically, but also your lifestyle, you know, how you live your life. And, you know, being on the road and this kind of lifestyle, it's about entertaining, and you're entertaining people before the show, after the show, during the show. So you have to learn how to pace yourself somewhat, you know. And I have to say, at 63, after the show, I'm ready for bed. I give it all away on the stage, my friend.
Yeah, well, yeah, you know, and I've in all the years I've known you, I've never known the answer to this question, because when I've talked to great singers, I always find it eternally fascinating, because I'll talk to guys that will tell me, or women that will tell me, that they have this massive ritual before they sing, and there's a cool warm up and a warm down, and they won't speak on show days. And then, of course, our mutual friend, the late great Ronnie James Dio, I'll never forget sitting with him in his dressing room before he went out to sing with Sabbath one night. And I said, Ronnie, let me get out of here, let you warm up. He goes, what are you talking about? You know, he just walked out on stage and sang and did absolutely nothing. What's the Geoff Tate rule on that? Is there a big warm-up thing, or do you just go for it?
I'm more of the Ronnie James Dio camp. I start my warm-up when I get up in the morning, just warming up, singing lightly to myself. And then I really have my warm-up at a sound check. And I almost always, 9 days out of 10 days, I'll have a sound check. I like sound check. I like making sure it's all set up and everything's working right, and I can sing well, and that's where I get all my warm up going, and then I don't worry about it, you know, after that. And I usually have like a couple drinks before the show just to kind of unwind and relax. The band and I'll sit around, tell stories, and have a couple drinks, and then we go out and do the show, you know.
You mentioned Operation Mindcrime a few minutes ago. That there was some talk, and some people in my audience actually asked me to ask you about this, that apparently at one point there was some talk about you actually doing a theater production, or that turning into a theater presentation of some sort. Is that something you still want to do? Is there any movement on that?
Oh, gosh, there's been movement and then non-movement and more movement and then non-movement. It's at first I was kind of frustrated about it, because it's been shopped around as a movie several times. I've had conversation with directors, producers over the years. Some people on Broadway have been interested twice. And then it always comes down to, you know, the funding, you know, and it's expensive to do those kind of things. And I think the last time that it came up, and we tend to sell these options on the idea, you know, because people come to us and they say, look, we want to do the movie and we're willing to do it. And say, okay, well, if you're gonna do it, you know, we'll give you the rights to make a movie for 6 months, and then after that, you can't, you know, it's done. You had your shot. And it always falls through, you know, at least it has so far. I think it's still possible in the future. It just hasn't happened yet, you know.
Mm. Everybody, you can see Geoff Tate performing on tour right now. The tour plays tomorrow in New York City, Sony Hall. And then you've got dates that continue. I'm scrolling through Albany, Massachusetts. You can find all the dates wherever you're listening at geofftate.com. Geoff, what about new music? Have you thought about a new record? Do you want to do a new record? Where are things at with that?
Well, I started doing these kind of interesting records with people at Frontier Records in Italy. Called Sweet Oblivion, and I've done 2 of them now. And
I've heard them; they're real good. I've heard them. Yeah,
yeah, they're kind of fun projects to do because I get to work with different people and collaborate, writing and performing with different people. That's quite fun for me. So I'm slated to do another one of those this year, and then I just finished tracks on the new Avantasia album with Tobias Sammet and his crew of people. And other than that, I don't really have anything else in the works that's new. I'm pretty much focusing on touring over the next year and a half. I'm going to some new places that I haven't been before, like Peru, which I've never been. Looking forward to that. And my wife and I started this new travel business a couple of years ago called Backstage Pass Travel, where we take people around with us while we tour, and we take them to all of our favorite places that we go. It's a week-long trip, and we take them to Tuscany and Ireland, Scotland, Montana, the Pacific Northwest, Rio de Janeiro, Rome, these kind of places. And so we've been doing that and having a lot of fun with that. It's been really, really interesting.
So it's basically you can book a trip with Geoff and Susan Tate, and you guys are the tour guides, pretty much?
Pretty much, yeah. We take you everywhere we like and places that we've discovered. And it's for the first-time traveler, it's really quite fun because you don't have anything to worry about. You just show up, and we got the ball from there. And we take you everywhere and show you all the cool things we've discovered over 30 years of traveling around the world. And people love it, and they keep coming back for more and more trips.
Well, that's pretty cool. Can people sign up for those and keep up with those on your site, or is it a separate place to go?
Yeah, I think there's a button you can push on geofftate.com that'll take you there. And also the website is called backstagepasstravel.com.
And how about, I remember, and I have a bottle of this too, and I had more than one bottle at one point. It was quite good. Are you still doing your line of wine? Was it Insania? Did I have their name right?
It's called Insania. Mm-hmm.
Insania.
Yeah. Yep.
And how's that going for you?
And it's going great. Yeah, every vintage, it's a challenge because you're dealing with farming, and the weather and growing grapes. And this last year was a really challenging year because of the rain. We had a lot of rain, and the winery is in Alsace, which is right on the border of France and Germany and Switzerland. And they had record-setting rains this last year, so it was a tough year for our vintage. But yeah, we imported into the States, and we should be getting the first import in the next few weeks, actually.
Awesome. And then 2 quick things, and I'll let you run, Geoff. I mentioned Dio earlier. I know, we all miss him, and we were all very fond of him. I remember when Ronnie played that party for me in New York City, and I remember you came, and we had a great time that night, and I have so many memories with Ronnie. I was listening the other day to Stars, the Hearing Aid recording, and I was going through all the people that were on that. And of course, you were part of that, and you sang on that. And so many rock fans now are fascinated by the Hearing Aid thing and listening to it and seeing the video and all those different personalities in that room. Anything you remember about recording that and that day?
Yeah, I was scared to death. Yeah, completely overwhelmed by it all. And I wasn't until, I talked to Ronnie on the phone, and he invited me down for it. And Ronnie wanted me to do it. I said, absolutely. The guy was a mentor to me, and he was a fantastic singer and just a great all-around guy. Anyway, I flew down to L.A., and when I showed up at the studio there, it was like a circus going on. I've never seen so many people. And all these famous musicians. And, I was new to the business at the time. We were just making our second or third record, I think. And I was so afraid when I walked in the studio. I met up with Ronnie, and he brought me in the studio right away and tried to make me feel comfortable, and showed me where the microphone was, and got me all set up with tea and water and everything, and the lyric sheet and everything. He goes, okay, so we're just going to run through it a few times, and you just sing it, the way you do, and I'm just going to be on the other side of the glass. So I look on the other side of the glass, and there's all these like famous musicians in the control room listening. There's like Neil Sean is in there, and Ted Nugent, and Halford is in there, and the place was packed full of these different musicians, watching the session and listening to it. And I was just shaking. I was so intimidated. I just sat there with my sunglasses on the whole time. I couldn't take them off. I just had to like shut myself off and get into the music without, looking through the window to see who was listening, But
well, yeah, you're a new
really
kid
happy
at the time, and there's Dio producing you on top of it all.
Yeah. Well, he's very easy to hang out with, no matter. I was very used to him. And years later, I had the chance to produce him and work with him in the studio when he sang on the Operation Mindcrime 2 album.
Right.
And that was really a payback one for me, because I had to do 22 takes, Not because I needed them, just that we were undecided, because he kept giving us take after take after take that was incredible. This is like, how many takes of greatness do you need?
Right.
But he was fantastic to work with.
Yeah. And finally, I'll be seeing you in a couple of weeks. You were a late addition onto the Monsters of Rock cruise. You looking forward to that?
I am. Yeah, I love those cruises. This would be my first Monsters of Rock. I typically do the Shiprocked one, so this is the first Monsters I'll do, and I'm looking forward to it. I like that kind of environment where you're just floating at sea, and everybody's partying and listening to music, and you get to see all the different bands perform. A lot of times, as a musician, you don't get to see other acts play, because you're always touring. So this is a real treat.
And on the cruise, will you be doing the same thing you're doing on the road now? Are you going to do Rage for Order and Empire, or are you going to do a different set?
Yep, I'm doing Rage for Order and Empire in its entirety, yeah.
And most acts play twice over the course of the cruise. Is that the plan for you as well?
Yeah, I think it is, yeah.
All right, cool. Well, I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks, and I'll be doing the radio show on board for a couple of the days as well. So if it works out, come by and say hello again. Always love to have you. It's been too long since we talked, and I'm glad we had a chance to catch up.
Yeah, thanks for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
You got it. Everybody check out GeoffTate.com, see if a date is coming near you as Geoff continues to tour throughout North America, and the dates are all listed there, including the next show, which is in New York City tomorrow. Send my best to your wife, Geoff, and I'll see you in a couple weeks as well, and we'll see you on the ship.
Okay, Eddie. Take care, man. Bye-bye now.
See you, man. Bye-bye. There goes everybody. Geoff Tate joining us for a bit here on Trunk Nation. Some interesting stuff there. We'll get into it, and we'll get some of your calls in as well as we ready to close out show number 1 of 2 on this Monday. Trunk Nation on Volume coming back right after this.